Check 212. Alright, we are back for another Woomoo transmission. Today we have a somewhat spooky episode due to the serendipitous nature of it. I'm sure many of you who are watching will be well aware of the hugely unfortunate catastrophe that took place in Nepal and on the border of China the other night in the name of a flood. Okay, so today's episode we are going to be hypothesizing, theorizing, and it's not to say it's never been posited before, but this is a hugely unspoken of theory regarding the Great Flood, the catastrophe of the Younger Dryas 12,600 years ago. Now, why was it serendipitous? Well, I mean, I've been working on this episode for maybe 2 or 3 days now, so maybe a day or two prior to that flood, and it was, based around this idea of the moon coming to Earth, but I'll get to that later. But the night before the flood, my mum, she woke up in the morning and said, I had the weirdest dreams. And I was like, go on. Sure enough, she had this weird sort of premonition, example of retrocausality. She had a dream with an earthquake and a flood. And I was like, God, that's really weird. Sure enough, that night, there is this horrific flood in Nepal, which was, I mean, if you see the footage of that, it's Mother Nature's a bitch, right? But not only that, it was also the night of a lunar eclipse. Now, this is all hugely serendipitous. This is the synchronicity, the unfortunate one I reference, okay? Now, many of you may be going, oh shit, this guy's just a lunatic. Fun fact for the day, if we are going to be speaking about the moon. What is a lunatic? Well, what is the moon responsible for? Our tides, tidal waves. It is responsible for our tides. So a lunatic is someone who is irrational on a full moon, because on the full moon, the tides rise highest. That's when you have a king tide, and the water in your body, your blood, rushes to your head, making you irrationally emotional. That is the meaning of lunatic. Fun fact for you. Yay. Now, this theory, like I said, has been posited before. I mean, this is not a completely novel idea, although I came to it through my own volition, through my own weird little downloads, right? Now, I did some research into this idea of a pre-lunar sky, a time when the moon was not present in the night sky. And sure enough, I mean, this is pretty much global. You can go back throughout all antiquity and many cultures and find these oral traditions and myths passed down from the elders, listen to your elders folks, about this time in our antiquity where we didn't actually have a moon, okay? Now, the Greeks, and these are reputable folk, anyone aware of Plutarch, Ovid, Aristotle, right, Apollonius of Rhodes, these are scholarly, well-recognized philosophers and historians and scientists, what have you. So this isn't just some airy-fairy stuff. This has been passed down through generations and generations. But they speak of Arcadians, not to be confused with Akkadians of Mesopotamia. This is the Arcadians, which were an ancient Greek civilization or people who existed. The name themselves, the Proselines, referred to, it literally translates to those before the moon. Now in South America, the Chibcha, in Colombia, in the highlands of Bogota, the capital, they have these oral histories speaking of an epoch without a moon yet in the heavens, a moon not in the sky. And across Africa, we have the Zulu shamanic traditions, which again, in their oral traditions, pass down this story of two divine brothers bringing the moon to Earth, which triggered the catastrophic sea level surges, right? It triggered a great flood. Now, the traditions of the Zulu mention these brothers as Wowani and Mpanku. And they were said to be these amphibious sort of deity, mini-gods, demigods, that rose from the sea. Now, this is very similar to the mythos, the Sumerian mythology of Enlil and Enki, two reptilian amphibious-esque or Dogon of Palestine, or the Philistines, right? I mean, there are many traditions that speak of these amphibious deities that brought culture to humanity, but also had high technology. Now, people will go, well, no, the moon is just a natural entity, this, that, and the other. Well, I mean, if you want to believe that, that is fine. But let's just reference some of the statistical impossibilities of the moon. And this, bear in mind also, in supposed Apollo missions, they have noted that the moon rings like a bell. This is important, and I'll come to that in the next slide. But just in terms of its orientation and its dimensionality, it shows intentionality behind the design, okay? So in my personal belief, I do think it is a satellite, right? And I'll reference the Torah. I have mentioned this in previous videos, but the Torah written by 72 disciples. Now, this represents the 72 years in which it takes the Earth to rotate 1 degree in the precession of equinoxes. 72 times 360 is 25,920. This is a great Mayan year, one full precession of the equinoxes. But not only that, the 72 is also significant because we have 72 years in the average human life currently, but 72 average heartbeats a minute. Now, 72 times 60 is 4,320, a very special number, okay? 432 hertz per day, very significant. But more importantly, this draws correlation to the building of the pyramids to the moon. So I'm theorizing, that the race, the civilization responsible for building the pyramids also brought the moon, vice versa, right? Why? And I've mentioned this before, so bear with me. The height of the Great Pyramid times 43,200 is the polar radius of the Earth. Its base perimeter times 43,200 is the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Now, the Sun is 432,000 miles in circumference. One full planetary solar system precession of equinoxes is 4,320,000 years. But the Moon is twice 4,320 miles, the radius of it. It is a perfect 1 to 400th, I think, aspect of the Sun, and so it is within 0.01% of perfection in its aspect to it. That is why we get such perfect eclipses like we had just the other night. Now, not to mention all the other strangely anomalous in that its mass is 1/40th of the Earth, something like that, and it's only a quarter of the size. Totally disproportionate. It rings like this bell. So, is it a space station? Is it a satellite? Is it something like this? Well, these are worthy ideas of considering. But to just say that perfect sphere up in the sky happened to be the result of a collision with Earth and fall into that perfect aspect ratio to the Sun, it is statistically impossible, okay? Not to mention the intentionality with the pyramids in taking this into account. But then you go, how the fuck do you bring a moon to the sky? Okay, well, I've mentioned this in the previous episode, or the one before that, and I've gone on a little bit in prior ones. But through acoustic resonance and scalar wave technology. Now, this is something posited again by Tesla, who I think he was a little bit more ahead of his contemporaries, clearly. But the whole idea that scalar waves, or the idea of longitudinal waves being able to travel faster than light, and this acoustic resonance and all this sort of stuff, the pseudoscientific labeling of scalar technology is purely based around Einsteinian relativity. It is on the basis that space is a vacuum. Okay, now, again, I've been on about this ad nauseum. Quantum entanglement, which is demonstrably proven true, completely negates this. There has to be a conductive fabric of this reality. There is no just nothing in between stuff. There is a conductive element in which energy can travel through. This is all energy based. So the idea of how would you transport a moon, but then you also go, well, how did they build the pyramids? And I'll come on to all these ancient references of megalithic sites in a second. But through this theoretical scalar electrodynamics model, through generating a standing wave, an acoustic longitudinal wave at harmonic nodal points on whether it be a stone or any piece of matter, you're able to disentangle, decouple its electromagnetic or magnetoelectric field, and it renders its completely mitigates the gravitational inertia. So it renders it weightless, essentially. You're able to levitate it, you're able to manipulate it, right? So this would also be applicable in today's age of like atomic scale manufacturing. You could literally granulize it, okay, as well as have it weightless, and you could scoop it, as seen in some of these ancient sites, right? So Sacsayhuaman, obviously, of Peru, they're literally like molded like clay. The matter has been affected. It looks like it's been melted. But these are, and the commonality across all of these sites, so the Hypogean, the Barabar Caves of India, most unbelievable fucking piece of technology or site, one of the best on Earth. Baalbek of Lebanon, which has the largest megalith on Earth. For those of you who don't actually know what megalithic means, mega, huge, lithic is just stone, so it's referencing stone architecture. The Moai statues of Easter Island, you got Teotihuacan, all this in Chichen Itza, Mexico. Stonehenge of England, they've just recently discovered that some of the large megaliths there were transported over 500 miles from the north of Scotland, right? The Great Pyramid, obviously, so on and so forth. And there's countless examples across the earth. More recently, I forget his name, but a Lithuanian man somewhere in Florida, in the States, he has this park, essentially, called Coral Castle. And he built this thing completely on his own, with basic technologies, all things considered, considering we can't actually even build these megalithic sites ourselves in today's day and age. The Japanese tried to reconstruct the Great Pyramid and failed after a couple levels. Like, it's crazy. The intentionality, the precision, and the technology required to actually achieve these monuments, right? But, so understanding. So through this acoustic resonance technology, if you're able to disentangle the magneto-electromagnetic field of mass and mitigate its gravitational inertia, render it weightless and manipulative, this would solve all these issues in our history of going, okay, well, how did they build that? How did they move this? It would also be, this is also how you would move the moon. That's why it was important to note that it rings like a bell. There is an acoustic resonance quality to it. All these sites you see here on the left, all the stones used, they're not just like a random rock you pick up. If you knock them, it has this resonant, like bell-like quality to it. So they were hand-selected. They were very intentionally selected, these megaliths. Why? I posit for the acoustic resonance. So they are viable for this acoustic resonance technology to easily move them and construct with them, right? So, food for thought, huh? Interesting. I know so many people kind of just say, oh, there were comets, or there was a volcano, or there was this, that, and the other. But, a tidal wave is caused by the satellite that causes our tides. This is worthy of discussion, in the very least. Anyway. Woo-woo. Woo-way.